The morning sun rose over the fields of New Eden, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Children ran through the streets of the colony's capital city, laughing and playing without a care in the world. Farmers prepared for another day of work. Families sat down for breakfast together. It was a peaceful morning on a peaceful world, home to 2,300,000 human souls who had built a new life among the stars. Commander Kate stood on the balcony of the security headquarters, drinking her coffee and watching the city wake up. She had been stationed on New Eden for 3 years now, and she had grown to love this place. The colonists were good people, kind. They had transformed a barren planet into a garden world through decades of effort. Her communicator buzzed with a routine message from Earth. Nothing unusual. The Galactic Concord meetings were proceeding as always. Humanity's ambassador was negotiating trade agreements. The galaxy continued to spin in its slow, bureaucratic way. Kate had no idea that in less than 1 hour, everything would change forever. The first warning came from the orbital monitoring station. A technician named Chris Palmer noticed something strange on his sensors. Multiple objects were approaching New Eden at high speed. Too many objects, too fast. He tried to identify them, but before he could complete his scan, the station exploded around him. He died without ever knowing what had killed him. Kate felt the ground shake beneath her feet. She looked up and saw fire falling from the sky. Bright streaks of destruction rained down on the city, each one an orbital bombardment round carrying enough power to level a city block. Buildings collapsed. Streets turned to craters. People who had been walking to work one moment were gone the next. She dropped her coffee and ran inside, shouting orders to her staff. Emergency protocols activated. Sirens began to wail across the city, but Kate knew with terrible certainty that it was already too late for most of them. They had come. She had read about them in intelligence briefings, a warrior species that ruled through fear and violence. They considered themselves the supreme power in their region of space, and they viewed humanity as insects, weak, insignificant, beneath their notice. Until today. Kate worked frantically to coordinate evacuation efforts. Underground shelters could hold perhaps 100,000 people. She directed civilians to the nearest entrances, watching on security feeds as families ran for their lives through streets filled with smoke and fire. The bombardment lasted for 30 minutes. When it finally stopped, Kate allowed herself a moment of hope. Maybe they had done enough damage and would leave. Then they came. Thousands of them descended through the burning atmosphere, carrying soldiers to the surface. They landed in every district, every neighborhood, every corner of the colony, and they began to kill. Kate watched the security feeds with growing horror. They were not taking prisoners. They were not accepting surrender. They walked through the streets executing everyone they found. Men, women, children, the elderly. It made no difference to them. And they were broadcasting it all. Every death, every scream, every moment of terror was being transmitted across galactic communication networks. They wanted the galaxy to see what happened to species that they deemed inferior. Kate gathered the survivors she could find and led them toward the emergency hangar. A single cargo vessel sat there, old and barely functional, but it was their only chance. 17 people made it aboard before they found them. She sealed the doors and launched the ship herself, pushing the engines beyond their limits as fighters tried to shoot them down. By some miracle, they escaped the atmosphere. By some cruel twist of fate, they lived while millions died below. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Kate looked back at New Eden one last time. The planet that had been her home was covered in smoke and fire. 2,100,000 people had died in less than 4 hours. Families wiped out, children murdered, an entire world silenced forever. She carried with her a data core containing recordings of everything, every atrocity, every death, every moment of the massacre. The galaxy would see what they had done. 3 days later, The cargo vessel limped into Earth space. Kate was taken directly to United Human Coalition headquarters, where she delivered her report to the highest levels of government and military command. Admiral Daniel Harper sat in the briefing room and watched the recordings in silence. His face showed no emotion, but his hands gripped the arms of his chair so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His daughter had lived on New Eden with her husband and 2 children. The recordings showed their district. There were no survivors. When the footage ended, no one spoke for a long time. General Lane, head of Earth's military command, was the first to break the silence. He had warned for years that humanity's peaceful reputation made them a target. No one had listened. Now his worst fears had come true. Ambassador Cole received a transmission from the Galactic Concord. The Dominion had sent an official message to all member species. He read it aloud to the room. Let this be a lesson to the lesser races. Humanity exists because the permitted. Know your place. Accept your weakness. Any further defiance will result in the complete extermination of your species. You have been warned. The room remained silent. Admiral Harper stood slowly. He walked to the window and looked out at the Earth below. Billions of humans lived on that blue and green world. They were waking up to the news of New Eden. They were seeing the recordings of their brothers and sisters being murdered. They were feeling something that humanity had not felt in centuries. Rage. Pure, burning, unified rage. Harper turned back to face the room. His voice was calm and steady, but his eyes held something cold and terrible. 40 years, he said. For 40 years we smiled and negotiated and played by their rules. We showed them our best face. We proved that we could be civilized. He paused. They answered our civility by murdering 2 million of our people and laughing about it. General Lane nodded. What are your orders, Admiral? Harper looked at the frozen image on the screen. A soldier standing over the body of a human child, broadcasting his victory to the galaxy. Prepare the fleet, Harper said quietly. All of it, everything we have kept hidden, everything we have built in secret, the wanted to teach humanity a lesson. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Now we will teach them one. Ambassador Cole had spent 20 years building relationships with alien species. He believed in diplomacy. He believed that words could solve problems that weapons could not. He had dedicated his life to proving that humanity deserved its place among the stars through peace, not war. Now he stood before the Galactic Concord, demanding justice for 2 million murdered souls, and he could see in their eyes that justice would not come. The council chamber on Axis Prime was the largest structure ever built by the combined species of the galaxy. Representatives from 40 different civilizations sat in their designated sections, watching as Cole presented the evidence of the massacre. The recordings played on massive screens. The death tolls scrolled across displays. The faces of the dead appeared one after another, a river of humanity that had been silenced forever. When the presentation ended, Cole made his formal request. He asked the Concord to impose sanctions on the Dominion. He asked for military intervention to prevent future attacks. He asked for the perpetrators to be brought before a galactic tribunal for crimes against sentient life. High Commander of the Dominion rose from his seat. He was massive, standing nearly 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin and eyes that burned with contempt. He looked at Cole the way a person might look at an insect crawling across their floor. The human speaks of crimes, said, his voice echoing through the chamber. What crime? We eliminated a pest infestation on a world near our borders, nothing more. Cole felt his hands trembling, but he kept his voice steady. You murdered civilians, children, families who had never raised a weapon against you. Laughed. It was a terrible sound, like rocks grinding together. Humans are prey animals pretending to be civilized. You exist in this galaxy because stronger species permit it. New Eden was a reminder of that truth. Be grateful we stopped at 1 colony. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Cole looked to the species he had considered friends and allies, the with whom humanity had traded technology for decades, the who had signed cultural exchange agreements, the who had called humans their partners in peace. None of them would meet his eyes. The vote was called. 40 species. One question. Would the Galactic Concord take action against the Dominion for the massacre of New Eden? 37 voted no. 2 abstained. Only one small species, the voted yes. Their representative would later disappear under mysterious circumstances. The council issued a formal statement. They condemned the attack in the strongest possible language. They expressed deep sympathy for humanity's loss. They urged all parties to pursue diplomatic solutions. And that was all. Cole stood alone in the center of the chamber as the representatives began to leave. Walked past him, pausing just long enough to speak quietly. Your species has 2 choices, human. Accept your place at the bottom of the galactic order or be erased from existence. There is no third option. Cole said nothing. He watched leave, then turned to face the remaining council members. I have one final statement to make on behalf of the United Human Coalition. The chamber fell silent. Something in Cole's voice had changed. The diplomatic patience was gone. In its place was something cold and hard and absolutely certain. For 40 years, humanity has been a member of this Concord. We limited our military to defensive forces only. We shared our technology freely with any species that asked. We believed that civilization meant something. We believed that this council would stand against genocide. He paused, letting his words sink in. We were wrong. Cole pulled a small device from his pocket and pressed a button. The screens around the chamber lit up with a new document, the official notice of humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Concord. Effective immediately, humanity revokes all treaties, all agreements, all limitations we accepted as members of this body. We are no longer bound by your rules. The council erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and protests, but Cole was not finished. To the Dominion, I have this message. You killed 2 million of our people and called it pest control. You broadcast their deaths as entertainment. You laughed at their suffering. His voice rose, filling the chamber. You wanted humanity to know fear. You wanted us to understand our weakness. Instead, you have taught us something far more dangerous. You have taught us that civility is wasted on barbarians. He turned and walked toward the exit. His voice chased him. Is this a declaration of war, human? Because if you want war, we will burn your precious earth to ash and scatter your species across the void. Cole stopped at the door. He looked back with eyes that held no fear. You will try, he said simply, and you will learn what humanity is capable of when we stop being polite. 3 days later on Earth, General Lane unsealed a vault that had been locked for 40 years. Inside was the Prometheus contingency, humanity's greatest secret. While diplomats had smiled and negotiated and played the part of a peaceful species, the military had been busy. Secret shipyards hidden in asteroid fields, weapons research conducted on moons that officially did not exist, training programs that produced soldiers the galaxy had never seen. The believed humanity had a small defensive fleet of perhaps 300 ships. The truth was very different. Admiral Harper stood on the command deck of the carrier Unity's Vengeance and watched as the fleet assembled. 12,000 warships emerged from hidden bases across human space, battle cruisers the size of small cities, stealth destroyers that could slip through any sensor net, fighter carriers loaded with pilots who had trained their entire lives for a war everyone hoped would never come. General Lane appeared on the communication screen. The fleet is ready, Admiral. What are your orders? Harper thought of his daughter. The millions of innocent people who had died because humanity had chosen to appear weak. Set course for space, he said. Maximum speed. and the rules of engagement. Harper's expression did not change, but something in his eyes went dark. They murdered our children and called it a lesson. They broadcast the deaths of our families as entertainment for the galaxy. They laughed at our grief and promised to do it again. He straightened in his chair. Rules of engagement are as follows: no mercy, no retreat, no surrender accepted until every military installation in their territory is reduced to dust. They wanted to teach us our place in the galaxy. The fleet began to move, thousands of ships turning as one toward the darkness between stars. Now we will teach them theirs. Captain Drake had waited his entire career for this moment. For 15 years, he had commanded the stealth destroyer Nightfall, running silent patrols along humanity's borders. For 15 years, he had trained his crew for a war that the politicians promised would never happen. For 15 years, he had kept humanity's greatest military secret. Now the secret was about to be revealed. The Nightfall drifted through space without a sound, its advanced cloaking systems making it invisible to every sensor known to the galaxy. Around it, 199 identical ships held position, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. Drake studied the tactical display. Station floated in the darkness ahead, the largest military installation along their border. 50,000 soldiers called it home. Hundreds of warships were docked at its ports. They considered it unconquerable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "All ships report ready," his first officer announced. Drake nodded. He opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Captain Drake. You all know why we are here. 3 weeks ago, they murdered 2 million of our people. They killed our families. They killed our children. They laughed and told us to accept our place." He paused. "Tonight, we show them exactly where our place is. Tonight, we show them what happens when you wake the sleeping giant. All ships on my mark and fire at will." He took a breath. Mark. 200 human warships appeared out of nothing, surrounding station like wolves circling wounded prey. They had no warning. Their sensors screamed alerts too late. Their crews scrambled for battle stations too slowly. The Nightfall's main weapons came online. Concentrated plasma accelerators, a technology humanity had developed in secret and never revealed to the galaxy. The beams cut through shields like they were made of paper. Explosions bloomed across the station's surface. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, station was a field of debris. Every ship was destroyed. Every soldier was dead. The humans had not lost a single vessel. Drake surveyed the wreckage and felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just cold, focused purpose. "Signal Admiral Harper," he ordered. "Station is eliminated, proceeding to secondary targets." Across the border, 13 other installations met the same fate within the same hour. Humanity's stealth fleet struck simultaneously, appearing from nowhere and leaving only destruction behind. The forward defense network, built over centuries and considered invincible, ceased to exist in 60 minutes. High Commander received the reports in his command center on Prime. He read them 3 times, certain there had been a mistake. This was impossible. Humans had no fleet capable of this. Humans were weak, peaceful, easily crushed. His advisors gathered around him, their faces showing the first flickers of fear that warriors were never supposed to feel. "How many ships do they have?" demanded. "Unknown, High Commander. Our scouts never detected any fleet movements. The humans appeared from nowhere." Slammed his fist against the table. "Then we will crush them with overwhelming force. Order the Grand Fleet to assemble. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we possess. We will meet these humans in open battle and show them the true power of the Dominion." The Grand Fleet gathered over the following days. 3,000 warships, the largest military force in the quadrant. Himself took command, leading his forces toward the human incursion. He would personally oversee the destruction of this annoying species. Admiral Harper received word of the approaching fleet. He stood on the bridge of Unity's Vengeance and reviewed the tactical data. 3,000 ships, impressive by galactic standards. Admiral, Lieutenant Amy reported from her station. The fleet will arrive in 6 hours. They outnumber our forward elements significantly. Harper nodded. Signal all units to fall back to rally point 7. Let them think they have us on the run. The human ships retreated and confidence grew. The humans had struck from the shadows, but now they fled from a real fight. Typical prey behavior. He ordered his fleet to pursue at maximum speed. When the Grand Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at rally point 7, expected to find a handful of human ships making a desperate last stand. Instead, he found hell waiting for him. 12,000 human warships filled the space before him, carriers larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen, battlecruisers bristling with weapons that glowed with barely contained power. Behind them, hundreds of thousands of automated defense platforms created a wall of steel and fire. Stared at the tactical display, unable to process what he was seeing. This was impossible. No species could hide a fleet this size. No species could build weapons this powerful. No species could have prepared this thoroughly without anyone knowing. A communication request appeared on his screen. Against his better judgment, he accepted it. Admiral Harper's face appeared before him. The human looked calm, almost peaceful, but his eyes held something that made even want to look away. "High Commander," Harper said, 3 weeks ago you murdered my daughter. You murdered 2 million people and called it pest control. Tried to respond, but Harper continued. You told us to know our place. You said humanity exists because you permit it. You promised to burn Earth and scatter our species across the void. Harper leaned forward slightly. I want you to understand something before this battle begins. For 40 years, humanity chose peace. We could have built this fleet openly. We could have shown the galaxy our true strength. But we believed that civilization mattered. We believed that being powerful did not mean we had to use that power. His voice dropped. You took that belief from us. You showed us that the galaxy only respects force. So now we will speak the only language you understand. Finally found his voice. This changes nothing, human. We will fight. We will die with honor, and others will come after us to finish what we started. Harper shook his head slowly. No, High Commander, no one will come after you. When we are finished here, there will be nothing left of the military, nothing left of your ability to wage war, nothing left of the empire you built on murder and fear. He straightened in his chair. You wanted to teach humanity a lesson. Class is now in session. The communication cut off. A moment later, the human fleet opened fire. Lieutenant Amy coordinated the attack from her station aboard Unity's Vengeance. Every shot was calculated for maximum effect. Every maneuver was designed to cut off escape routes. They fought bravely, she would admit that much. But bravery meant nothing against superior numbers, superior technology, and a species united by grief and rage. The Battle of Rally Point 7 lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 2,800 ships were destroyed. The remaining 200 surrendered, their crews too broken to continue fighting. High Commander was not among the survivors. His flagship had been targeted by 17 human ships simultaneously. There was nothing left but atoms scattered across the void. Admiral Harper watched the final vessel lower its weapons and transmit surrender codes. He felt no joy, no satisfaction, only the cold knowledge that this was just the beginning. Signal all ships, he ordered. Secure the prisoners, tend to our wounded, and prepare for Phase 2. Lieutenant looked up from her station. Phase 2, sir. Harper's expression did not change. We have won the battle. Now we win the war. Set course for Prime. We have unfinished business with the Dominion. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the human fleet arrived at Prime. Every species with access to long-range sensors turned their attention to the news networks across 100 civilizations broadcast the same images. 12,000 human warships surrounding a planet that had never known defeat. They had ruled through fear for 1,000 years. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They had crushed rebellions and silenced opposition. No enemy had ever reached their home system. Until now. Admiral Harper stood on the bridge of Unity's vengeance and studied the planet below. Prime was a harsh world of rocky continents and stormy seas, perfectly suited to the brutal species that called it home. Cities covered its surface, home to billions of civilians who had cheered when New Eden burned. He remembered the recordings, crowds celebrating in the streets as human children were murdered, families gathering around screens to watch the massacre like it was entertainment, children taught to laugh at the deaths of innocent people. Part of him wanted to order the bombardment. Part of him wanted to do to them what they had done to New Eden, an eye for an eye, a world for a world. But that was not why humanity had come. Open a channel to the planetary government, Harper ordered. The screen flickered and a new face appeared. Not the High Commander who had died at Rally Point 7, but his successor, a younger named, who had been given command of a military that no longer existed. I am Admiral Daniel Harper of the United Human Coalition. Your fleet is destroyed. Your forward bases are eliminated. Your ability to wage war is gone. His face twisted with hatred and fear. What do you want, human? Have you come to burn our world as we burned yours? Harper considered the question carefully before answering. No. The single word hung in the air. His expression shifted to confusion. Humanity did not come here for revenge, Harper continued. We came for justice. There is a difference, though I do not expect you to understand it. He leaned forward. Here are our terms. Every officer who participated in the New Eden massacre will be surrendered to human custody. Every weapons factory on your planet will be dismantled under our supervision. Every warship will be decommissioned. Your military will be reduced to defensive forces only, and you will never again project power beyond your own system. His voice rose in outrage. You ask us to become weak, to become prey. The other species will destroy us the moment you leave. Then perhaps you should not have spent 1,000 years making enemies, Harper replied calmly. Those are our terms. Accept them and your civilian population will not be harmed. Refuse, and we will impose them by force. The communication ended. For 3 days the government debated. Some wanted to fight to the last soldier. Others argued that survival was more important than pride. In the end, survival won. Human forces landed on Prime under heavy guard. They were not gentle, but they were precise. Military installations were demolished. Weapons factories were reduced to rubble. Ships were stripped of their armaments and left as empty shells. And the war criminals were taken. Commander Kate, survivor of New Eden, had been given a special role in the occupation. She led the team responsible for identifying and capturing every officer who had participated in the massacre. She had studied the recordings frame by frame. She knew every face, every name, every order that had been given. 347 officers were taken into custody. They would face trial for their crimes. They would answer for every life they had taken. The last to be captured was Sub-Commander, who had personally led the ground assault on New Eden's capital city. Kate found him hiding in a bunker beneath his family's estate, surrounded by guards who surrendered the moment they saw human soldiers approaching. Was brought before her in chains. He looked at her with contempt. You were there, he said, recognizing her face from the recordings. You ran like the coward you are. Kate said nothing. She simply stared at him until his contempt faded into something closer to fear. You killed my husband, she finally said. Her voice was quiet, controlled, empty of emotion. You killed my friends. You killed children who had never done anything to you. Tried to laugh. They were humans, prey animals. They meant nothing. Kate stepped closer. They meant everything, and now you will spend the rest of your short life understanding exactly what you took from us. She turned and walked away. The guards took to join the other prisoners. He would face justice soon enough. The Galactic Concord sent desperate messages to Admiral Harper, begging him to show restraint. They feared he would exterminate them entirely. They feared humanity had become the very thing they were fighting against. Ambassador Cole responded on humanity's behalf. You had the chance to prevent this. You could have stood with us when we asked for justice. You could have told that genocide would not be tolerated. Instead, you issued a formal condemnation and looked away. His voice carried no anger, only cold disappointment. Do not pretend to care about lives now. You did not care about human lives when it mattered. This is no longer your concern. The occupation of space lasted for 2 months. Human forces were thorough but disciplined. Civilian areas were left untouched. Food supplies were not disrupted. Medical facilities continued to operate. Humanity was not there to cause suffering. They were there to ensure that they could never cause suffering again. When the work was complete, Admiral Harper addressed the galaxy one final time. The Dominion believed that strength meant cruelty. They believed that power meant domination. They believed that fear was the only language the galaxy understood. He paused. They were wrong. True strength is not measured by how many lives you can take, but by how many you choose to spare. The murdered millions of our people, and we responded with overwhelming force. But we did not become them. We did not slaughter their civilians. We did not bomb their cities. We did not teach their children that human lives mean nothing. His expression hardened. Let this be understood by every species in the galaxy. Humanity will not start wars. We will not attack those who have done us no harm. We will not use our power to dominate or exploit. But if anyone, anywhere, harms our people, we will respond with everything we have. And we will not stop until the threat is eliminated. The transmission ended. In the days that followed, the Galactic Concord voted unanimously to invite humanity back as a full member. Ambassador Cole accepted, but only on humanity's terms. Equal voting rights, veto power over military matters, no restrictions on human fleet sizes. The Council had no choice but to agree. Captain Drake was promoted to Admiral and given command of humanity's new border defense fleet. His orders were simple: watch, wait, protect, and never ever let New Eden happen again. Kate returned to Earth with the prisoners. The trials would begin soon. Justice would be served not through vengeance but through law, through process, through the civilization that they had tried to destroy. She looked out at the stars and thought about everyone she had lost. Her husband, her friends, her home. The pain would never fully heal, but she could live with it now. She could carry it forward. Because humanity had proven something important. They had shown the galaxy that mercy was not weakness, that restraint was not cowardice, that you could be both gentle and terrible, peaceful and dangerous, kind and absolutely unforgiving when kindness was rewarded with cruelty. They had tried to teach humanity its place. Instead, humanity had taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. 1 year had passed since the massacre of New Eden. 1 year since the galaxy had watched humanity transform from a peaceful trading species into something that made even the oldest civilizations afraid. 1 year since the word human stopped meaning prey and started meaning do not provoke under any circumstances. The War Crimes Tribunal convened on the anniversary of the attack. 347 officers stood before a panel of judges representing 12 different species. The evidence was overwhelming. The recordings left no room for doubt. The verdicts were unanimous. Guilty on all counts. High Commander had died at Rally Point 7, escaping the justice he deserved. but his subordinates faced the consequences he never would. Sub-commander, who had led the ground assault. Captain, who had commanded the orbital bombardment. Colonel, who had ordered his soldiers to target children specifically because, as he put it, eliminating the young ensures the species learns its lesson. They were all executed on the anniversary of New Eden, their deaths broadcast across the galaxy just as they had broadcast the deaths of humans 1 year before. It was not revenge. It was accountability. Every species in the galaxy understood the message. Actions have consequences. Cruelty has a price. Kate watched the executions from Earth. She felt no satisfaction. She felt no joy. She only felt a quiet sense of closure, like finally reaching the end of a long and painful journey. Her husband was still gone. Her friends were still dead. New Eden was still a graveyard, but the people who had done it would never hurt anyone again. She took a transport to New Eden 3 days later. The planet had been transformed into a memorial world. The cities were gone, replaced by vast gardens and quiet monuments. The names of every victim were carved into walls that stretched for miles. 2,100,000 names. 2,100,000 lives that had been taken too soon. Kate walked along the wall until she found the name she was looking for. Her husband, her best friend, the man who had made her laugh every morning and held her hand every night. She placed a single white flower beneath his name and stood in silence for a long time. "I kept my promise," she whispered. "I made sure they paid for what they did. I wish you were here to see it. I wish you were here to tell me I did the right thing." The wind moved through the garden, rustling the leaves of trees planted in memory of the dead. It almost sounded like an answer. Admiral Daniel Harper had retired from active duty after the war. He had done what needed to be done, but he had no desire to continue. The violence had taken something from him that he was not sure he could get back. He spent his days on a small farm in the countryside outside the capital city. He grew vegetables. He read books. He watched the sunset and tried not to think about the people he had killed. Every week he visited the memorial in the city center, a smaller version of the one on New Eden, containing only the names of his daughter, his son-in-law, and his two, Emma, Thomas, little Sarah, who had just learned to walk, baby Jack, who had never even seen his first birthday. He would sit on a bench in front of the memorial and talk to them. He told them about his garden, about the weather, about the small, ordinary things that made up a life. He never talked about the war. One day, a young woman approached him. She recognized him from the news, from the broadcasts that had made him famous across the galaxy. She asked if she could sit with him. "My father was on New Eden," she said quietly. "He was a teacher. He loved his students more than anything in the world." Harper nodded. He understood. "I wanted to thank you," she continued, "for what you did, for making sure it never happens again." Harper was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired. "I did what I had to do. I'm not sure it deserves thanks." The young woman shook her head. "You gave us justice. You showed the galaxy that our lives matter, that we matter. After everything they did to us, after everyone told us to accept it and move on, you stood up and said no. That matters, Admiral. It matters more than you know." She left a flower at the memorial and walked away. Harper stayed until the sun went down, thinking about her words. Maybe she was right. Maybe what they had done meant something. Maybe it had not all been for nothing. Ambassador Cole returned to the Galactic Concord as humanity's permanent representative. He was no longer the patient diplomat he had once been. He was still polite, still professional, still willing to negotiate. But there was steel beneath his words now. Every species in the council knew that he spoke for a civilization that would not hesitate to defend itself. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. Species that had once ignored humanity now sought alliance. Trade delegations arrived from every corner of known space. Military agreements were proposed by civilizations that had previously considered humans beneath their notice. Cole accepted some offers and rejected others. Humanity was not interested in building an empire. They wanted peace, genuine peace, based on mutual respect rather than fear. But they would never again pretend to be weak. They would never again trust the conquered to protect them. 1 year after the war, a message was intercepted from the far side of the galaxy. The Empire, a powerful civilization that had been considering expansion into human territory, had sent scouts to assess humanity's capabilities. The scouts had returned with their report. The Emperor read it in his throne room, surrounded by advisors who had been eager for conquest. The report detailed the size of humanity's fleet, the power of their weapons, the speed and coordination of their attacks, the efficiency with which they had dismantled the Dominion. It also included recordings of the human response to New Eden, the cold, focused rage, the absolute refusal to accept injustice, the willingness to sacrifice everything to protect their own. The Emperor was silent for a long time after reading the report. Finally, he spoke. "Strike the humans from our list of potential targets, permanently." His advisors protested. The humans were far away. Their fleet was large, but the Empire was larger. With enough ships and enough soldiers, surely they could be conquered. The Emperor shook his head. "You do not understand. The humans are not like other species. They do not fight for territory or resources or glory. They fight because someone hurt their family. They fight because someone threatened their children. They fight because they believe down to their very core that no price is too high to protect the ones they love." He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "There are species you conquer, and there are species you leave alone. The humans are the second kind. They learned this lesson. I do not intend to repeat their mistake." The order was given. The Empire turned its attention elsewhere. Humanity would not be touched. On a colony world far from Earth, a little girl named Sophie asked her father a question. She was too young to remember the war, but she had seen the monuments. She had heard the stories. She knew that something important had happened before she was born. "Daddy," she said, "why are humans so respected now? My teacher says that everyone in the galaxy wants to be our friend." Her father smiled and lifted her onto his knee. He thought about how to explain something so complicated to someone so young. "A long time ago," he said, "some very bad people hurt us. They hurt us badly, and they thought we would just accept it. They thought we were weak because we were kind." Sophie frowned. "That is not nice." "No, it was not nice at all. But we showed them something important. We showed them that being kind is a choice, not a weakness. We showed them that we can be the most gentle people in the galaxy, but we can also be the most dangerous when someone threatens our family." He hugged her close. "The galaxy respects us now because they understand the truth. Humanity will do anything, pay any price, to protect the people we love. Our civility is not weakness. It is strength. And anyone who forgets that lesson will learn it the hard way." Sophie nodded, not fully understanding, but sensing that her father had said something important. Outside, the stars burned in the endless night. Somewhere out there, species whispered warnings to each other about the humans. Do not provoke them. Do not threaten them. Do not, under any circumstances, hurt their children. Because when humanity stopped being civil, galaxies learned to tremble. And they never forgot.